Injustice in a Manhattan courtroom. Let's talk about the obscene sweetheart deal New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg gave Trump's corrupt chief financial officer, Alvin Weisselberg. This one's offensive because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, this is not going to be an upbeat video because yesterday was not a good day for justice in a courtroom in Manhattan. District Attorney Alvin Bragg delivered an absolute gift to Donald Trump. Here is the reporting from the New York Times. Headline: Alvin Weisselberg, a top Trump executive, pleads guilty in tax scheme. One of Donald J. Trump's most trusted executives pleaded guilty on Thursday to conspiring with Mr. Trump's company to carry out a long-running tax scheme, an admission that painted a damning picture of the former president's family business, but did not advance a broader investigation into the former president himself. And Alvin Weisselberg pleaded guilty to 15 felony crimes. So you would expect he's going to prison for a very long time. Get this. Under the terms of the plea deal, if Mr. Weisselberg testifies truthfully at the upcoming trial, that's against the Trump organization, not against Donald Trump, he will receive a 5-month sentence and likely serve as little as 100 days with time credited for good behavior. Mr. Weisselberg, who was facing up to 15 years in prison, must also pay nearly $2 million in taxes, penalties, and interest. This plea does not require Mr. Weisselberg to cooperate with the district attorney's broader criminal investigation of Mr. Trump, and his admissions will not implicate the former president. In refusing to cooperate against Mr. Trump, Mr. Weisselberg fended off intense pressure from the prosecutors. Boy, you know, it's a good thing Alvin Weisselberg didn't snatch a purse, sell a $20 rock of crack cocaine, or maybe sell some loose cigarettes, because then maybe he would have really been in well, no, probably not, because Alvin Weisselberg is a rich, influential, connected white male. So he gets to set his own terms of the deal with prosecutors, even though he was involved in a 15-year-long criminal scheme to defraud the taxpayers of the city of New York, of the state of New York, and federal taxpayers, though he hasn't been charged for some reason with his federal tax crimes. Let me talk for a few minutes, friends, about how we take defendants like Alvin Weisselberg, people who can absolutely give us bigger criminal fish, and try to convert them into cooperating witnesses. Now, in my many years in the homicide practice at the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., I worked with and developed lots and lots of cooperating witnesses. One of my colleagues, one of my former assistant U.S. attorneys in the homicide section, used to call me the king of the cooperators, and that was not a compliment. You know, defendants who have chosen a life of crime, career criminals, can be very, very challenging to work with when you're trying to convert them from defendant to cooperating witness. Why? Because you have to take somebody who has lived a life of crime, convince them to tell the complete truth about all of their crimes and all of their friends' crimes and all of their family members' crimes, if their family members were involved in their criminal activities. And then you could start to talk to them about the crimes of the bigger criminal fish and work your way up that criminal food chain. And people who have chosen a life of crime, and make no mistake about it, Alvin Weisselberg chose a life of crime, white-collar crime though it may have been. It's very challenging to get them to become effective cooperators, to tell the complete truth about their own crimes and then the crimes of others. But it can be done, and prosecutors do it every day. But there's a formula. There's a tried and true approach to how you deal with a defendant that you're trying to flip and convert to become a really quality cooperating witness. Here's what you do. You take a guy like Alvin Weisselberg and you say, look, you are caught dead to rights in a 15-year criminal scheme to defraud in the first degree. 15 felony counts you're indicted on. So you really only have two options, Mr. Weisselberg. One, tell me the truth about everything you did, everything your family did, and everything Donald Trump did, or spend the rest of your life in prison as a result of, going to trial and being convicted on all 15 counts. Those are your only two choices. That's the way it works. And if an Alvin Weisselberg says, I'm not going to testify, I'm not going to cooperate against Donald Trump, I'm not going to tell you everything, but I will demand a plea deal that would land me in jail for only 100 days, even though I'm facing life given my age. Prosecutors are supposed to say, no, I'll see you at trial. But Alvin Bragg blinked and decided he would let Alvin Weisselberg set the terms, and those terms included only 100 days in jail if he gets good time credit, and he doesn't have to cooperate and assist the prosecutors in holding Donald Trump accountable for his crimes. That is a deal that I have never seen the likes of in my 30 years as a prosecutor. What motivated Bragg to do that? I have no idea. But what I can tell you, friends, is it's an absolute gift to Donald Trump. Now, I have heard some say, whoa, wait a minute. Alvin Bragg has this very stealth-like, double-secret probation plan that will end up, using Weisselberg, even though this deal looks really bad, using Weisselberg somehow against Trump, to which I say, that rings hollow. You know why? If Alvin Bragg had a stealth, double-secret probation approach in what seems to be a horrific plea deal, then would the top prosecutors, Pomerantz and Dunne, have resigned in protest, with Pomerantz in his resignation letter essentially saying, we had enough evidence to indict and convict Donald Trump on multiple felonies, but Alvin Bragg killed the case against Trump. We resign. No, it doesn't make sense that all of this is part of some grander plan that nobody can really see, where, Alvin Bragg is the prosecutorial mastermind. Nonsense. This was a sweetheart deal to Alvin Weisselberg that is a gift to Trump for reasons that I can't explain, but I sure hope somebody investigates, goes behind it, and finds out what the heck is going on in the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Now, there are other topics we could talk about, why this is such a horrific plea deal. And let me just touch on them for a minute or two. Alvin Weisselberg said, okay, I'll testify against the Trump organization, but I won't testify or cooperate against Donald Trump himself to hold him accountable for his crimes. Well, Weisselberg is the Trump organization, as is Donald Trump and his family members. And Weisselberg, the chief financial officer, has already pleaded guilty to 15 felonies, corruptly running the financial end of the Trump organization. So his offer to plead against the Trump organization, which is pending trial, it is indicted, the organization, and has a trial date coming up in the fall. Let me predict, there won't be a trial. They'll somehow settle their way out of it. But his agreement to to testify against the Trump organization is not all that earth-shattering. But if he does have to testify as a cooperating witness, his testimony is going to be damaged by this plea deal, because the defense attorneys for the Trump organization will be able to cross-examine him on, well, Mr. Weisselberg, wait a minute. You pleaded guilty to 15 felonies. You should, by all rights, have a sentence that results in you being in prison for the rest of your life, but the prosecutors gave you a sentence that could result in just 100 days with good time, and the prosecutor said you don't even have to testify against the big fish. You don't have to cooperate with us. You, Mr. Weisselberg, can just set your own terms, whatever you want. Mr. Weisselberg, you're going to say anything those prosecutors want you to say when you're up on that witness stand, because the last thing you want to do is jeopardize that 100-day deal that also says you don't have to cooperate against Donald Trump. And the prosecutors will come back with, no, we told you have to tell the truth. And I've done this 1,000 times myself, and we mean it. But that doesn't mean the jury has to buy it. I mean, Weisselberg got such a sweetheart deal that any defense attorney worth his or her salt will cross-examine him on how the fact that you got that sweetheart deal means you're going to say anything the prosecutors want you to say, because you don't want to lose that deal. Because let's face it, if you told the prosecutors that your truthful testimony would clear the Trump organization, they probably wouldn't give you that sweetheart deal. You knew what they wanted you to say. I'm just spinning out the typical defense cross-examination. The point is, his promise to testify against the Trump organization, just who Weisselberg wants to testify against and nobody else, really damages his credibility as a trial witness. The other thing people say is, well, he's pleaded guilty to all these crimes, so that means he can no longer plead the fifth, right? Because when you plead guilty, that extinguishes your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, because your statements can't be held against you. You've already been convicted, you've pleaded guilty, and you don't still have a privilege against self-incrimination because your testimony can't incriminate you, because those charges are done. Here's the thing. As an academic exercise, that's true, that's accurate. But the reality is, once he pleads guilty and his Fifth Amendment rights regarding those crimes are over, done with, extinguished, you can compel him to testify. You can force him to go into a grand jury or take the stand at trial and testify, and he can't plead the fifth, but you can't compel him to tell the truth. He could still go into a grand jury or take the stand at trial and lie to protect Donald Trump. He's been doing a pretty darn good job of protecting Donald Trump, and Alvin Bragg has let him get away with it. So as an academic discussion, it's great that he can't plead the fifth, but you can't compel him to tell the truth about the crimes of Donald Trump. And look, he's already gotten away with 15 felonies, 100 days for 15 felonies. That's laughable. Do you really think he would care about a perjury charge if he lied about Donald Trump, even though he was compelled to testify and couldn't plead the fifth? I don't think he would bat an eye at a perjury charge after he just got away, in a very real sense, with going unpunished, largely unpunished, for 15 felonies. A 15-year criminal scheme to defraud the taxpayers of New York City, New York State, and, though he hasn't been charged federally, the U.S. taxpayers. Now, please don't misunderstand me. 100 days in jail, in prison, in detention of any kind is horrific. I don't care if you're 75 years old. I don't care if you're 18 years old. It's horrific. But it is still a sweetheart deal by which Alvin Weisselberg was allowed to set the terms. And Alvin Bragg caved, willingly gave him that sweetheart deal. I don't know. I don't know what's behind it, but I sure as heck hope we find out. And let me finish with a public service announcement, friends. And that public service announcement is that Donald Trump launched an armed attack on the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power. Just in case we have forgotten about that, lost sight of that when we're dealing with injustice in a Manhattan courtroom, and we're dealing with another investigation into Donald Trump stealing classified information from the federal government and concealing it at his Florida home, because there's a lot going on right now. But I bring you that public service announcement just to stay focused on the fact that Donald Trump tried to steal the presidency and tried to overthrow our democracy. Yeah, that's still in play. And he still needs to be held accountable for that, because justice matters. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better day, friends, on the justice front. Please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.